Hello and welcome to this Red Gaming Tech video, myself Marta, where as always I'm here with the latest from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. So what do I have for you today, my friends? Well, we have obviously a little bit of PC, a little bit of console, and we also have a bit of mobile to spice things up as well. Now we're going to kick things off with something rather interesting regarding the RX 590. And this is a very interesting move because it's also rather rare, as AMD is dual sourcing the graphics silicon for the RX 590, and it's making use of both the 12nm Global Foundries process as well as Samsung's 11nm node. Now obviously it was originally assumed, and understandably so, that we're going to be seeing the Polaris 30 GPU being exclusively created by Global Foundries, but Samsung is pitching in as well. And this was actually in response to an article from Tech Power Up, which was just a couple of days ago, so I'm a little bit late on this one, but I did miss it, and I do still find it rather interesting, as essentially, as I say, we've got two companies kind of pitching in here. Now, the 12nm FinFET node from Global Foundries does share a lot of similarities with that of Samsung's 11LPP, because both are nodelets that are derived from 14nm FinFET process blueprints that Samsung actually licensed to Global Foundries. Now I know the question that's immediately come to your mind, okay, is there a way to tell the difference between the two? And the answer seems to be no, there is no way to tell the difference, but that's not really that big of a deal, to be honest. This is more of like a, that's pretty cool, sort of inside baseball, as you will, rather than like, oh my god, run screaming in the streets, because there is basically, there's no real difference between any Polaris 30 GPUs, even if it uses Global Foundries or if it uses Samsung, because the 11nm versus 12nm naming convention is more about marketing than any real differences in performance or anything like that, as far as I am aware. So because each GPU is packaged in China, there is just no way to know which company manufactured the actual graphics chip that is inside your RX 590. Now, obviously, AMD don't like to do this unless they absolutely have to, because while it's all well and good for me to sit here and say there's no real difference between the two, there's still going to be questions in the back of your mind. You know, is there going to be slightly better overclocking? Is one of them going to be more efficient? Is one of them going to stay cooler a little bit better? That sort of thing. There are obviously concerns that are going to be floating around in your mind no matter how much people go, no, it's fine, obviously, and that's obviously why AMD or whoever don't like to do this unless they have to. And I do have a bit of a statement here from AMD's David Wang, who said, quote, traditionally we don't do the same part that does dual source like identical. We always try, if for example we could look from one foundry to another foundry to do something different, we have a bigger config or a smaller config, or lower power or higher performance. It's rarely one part that goes both ways. So essentially AMD have had to turn to two companies there against their better judgment, or against what they'd rather do, I suppose is a better way to phrase that, to basically meet the demand that they're expecting for the RX 590. So let's move on, shall we? So what do we have next? Well, we actually have some more revenue information, as according to DRAM Exchange, the NAND flash market has posted a 4% increase for the third quarter of 2018. I always said 2018, that's not a thing. I mean, it's kind of like a weird hybrid between 2019 and 2018. It's not quite that late in the year, that although December is almost here. Christmas is almost upon us, guys. Anyway, so we saw several suppliers raise their yields of 64 and 72 layer 3D NAND, and despite the fact that demand did not quite catch up with the supply available, we did still see the output grow, and of course we saw the market increase by that 4%. But it is interesting that the demand did not meet the supply available, because obviously they had such a surplus of supply, because this quarter is typically peak for smartphones and other electronics, given that of course it is in the run up to Christmas. And obviously we got this quarter as well that we're currently in, but obviously the third quarter, given that these are quite expensive items we're talking about here, is obviously critical for them. Now, unsurprisingly here, we also see the Intel supply issues playing a part in these issues, as well as their lack of notebook processors definitely had a role to play here in the lower than expected figures. Now, unsurprisingly as well, the ongoing trade dispute between the US and China has a negative impact on the overall market demand. And again, NAND flash remained oversupplied in the third quarter, and with the memory contract prices falling roughly 10 to 15%. Now, unfortunately, this oversupply and lack of demand is expected to continue into the fourth quarter of 2018, and we're going to be seeing steeper price declines for various NAND flash products. And this comes from the DRAM exchange analyst Ben Ye, who said, quote, memory module makers and OEMs are now at the end of their preparation for the year-end holiday season in North America and Europe, so they're reluctant to extend their inventories now. NAND flash suppliers are concentrating on enterprise SSD market to retain gross margins and on wafer market for greater digestion of inventories. Now, because they've got so much stock left over, this is unfortunately going to discourage some companies from moving forward in their technology transition. You know, why would they release a new technology when they've got all this old technology still sitting in the warehouse? Obviously, people are still going to buy and use the older technology, but also if there's a newer, better tech out on the market, you can kind of see why they'd be hesitant to do that when they've got warehouses full of the stuff that they still need to get rid of. And again, the comment from Ben was, quote, this also means that the mainstream architecture in the NAND flash market during 2019 will still be 64/72 layer 3D NAND. So we are going to see progress unfortunately slow down due to this. So we're going to move on to some console news for you next, as we have an interesting report as to the next Xbox. And we have an interesting report here from Thurrott.com, which basically claims that Microsoft is keen to be, well, being the first one to have a discless console, as apparently they are working on a discless Xbox One to come out in 2019. And these are going to be targeted at various markets where the sort of digital versions of games are more popular or more prevalently downloaded, I suppose. Now, this isn't to say this is going to be in the next Xbox. It could very well be in the next Xbox, or we could see a variant of the next Xbox with this tech. But I'd also say it's fairly likely that it could be a variant of the Xbox One/Xbox One S, or even the Xbox One X. But obviously will be slightly cheaper because it will not have the optical drive. So you might wonder, okay, what actually happens to, you know, this big old stack of Xbox games that I've got sitting around if I did for some reason want to buy this, or if someone gets given a physical game because, you know, that Auntie Nora doesn't realise that their console can't play discs or whatever. Apparently they're going to be doing a disc to digital program. That basically means you take your physical disc into a brick and mortar store, and it will basically then trade in your game for a digital download version of that very same game. Now, according to this report, the price for this particular console, at least the Xbox One variant of it, is expected to be quite cheap. It's expected to be below $200. Now, this report does state that we will be seeing a disc drive included in the Xbox Scarlet, and I would not be surprised to see that be the case, but I would also not be surprised to see a digital-only variant of it that is, you know, perhaps $50 or maybe even $100 cheaper than the one that has the disc capability. That would not actually be all that surprising, would actually be a rather interesting move, and could obviously be a choice for people who know they've got to get a good internet connection, a stable internet connection, all that sort of thing. So this is a rather interesting report, and obviously it's not going to be good for everybody by any means. I mean, I've harped on and on and on and on about how internet is just not at the level it needs to be for cloud gaming or for digital gaming to really take off the way that it has on the PC market, for instance. All that sort of stuff. So that is definitely going to be an issue, and Microsoft are very keenly aware of this, I'm sure, and I'm probably still going to be making sure that the ones with disk drives are still available. And if they do a diskless version of the Scarlet, then obviously we are going to see a disc version of it as well, all that sort of stuff, because I'm sure they are very aware of the amount of people that are hesitant to do digital only, especially on console, where the prices are actually fairly inflated considering you're even getting a box or anything like that. So let's move over to our final topic, shall we? So what you have here is a bit of a leak as to what's going on with the next Sony Xperia, the Sony Xperia XZ4 to be exact, as we have a leak of not only some specs but also some images as well from a Russian website by the name of andronews.com. Of course, there is going to be a link in the description below this video, but unless you read Russian, then good luck. Now, I'm not going to include the images in this video for obvious reasons, so do check out the link in the description below this video if you want to see the source. So, what we have here, and these are rumours in flaming gold letters, some specs. It's going to be having a 6.2 inch QHD plus OLED screen, retaining the same resolution as its predecessor, while also increasing the display size. And we're also going to be seeing the upcoming Snapdragon high-end SoC featured in this particular smartphone. This is thought to be the 8150, which of course I have discussed myself before, and of course we are expected to be seeing that officially unveiled next month. And we also see a 4000 mAh battery, up to 256 gigs of expandable storage, 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM depending on the variant that you choose, and it will also come with the Android 9.1 Pie OS as standard. We're going to be seeing 24 megapixels on and 16 megapixels on the dual rear cameras, and the selfie cam is going to be 24 megapixels. Now we also are probably likely to see this particular device be 5G ready, as well as Sony is allegedly one of the companies working alongside Qualcomm with the Snapdragon X50 modem, which of course is going to be 5G capable. But of course, we should wait and see on not only that, but everything I just discussed. So, yeah, that is me done for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.